episode 93 of the Fire Coaches Podcast. We have Coach Mike DuFrane on. Mike is now down in Alabama, assistant high school football coach down there, but he's originally from the Wisconsin area, spent a lot of time around the Midwest, coaching Division III, Division II football. So really excited to kind of dive into Mike's background, his career, and obviously just connect with him. So Mike, appreciate you sitting down on this Friday.
No, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. I guess, we were kind of talking a little bit off air about you playing at Whitewater, and obviously you saw a lot of, great experiences as a player, national title, runner-up. You were a very good player yourself. So, when you got done, obviously seeing a great experience at Whitewater there, getting towards the tail end, what did that initial coaching kind of thought start for you? Or is that something that when you were kind of coming into college, you're like, once I'm done, I'm going to dive into this coaching career?
No, I think when I got to college, I went pre-law right away. And then I went special ed. And then I went to communications and then a little bit of sports management and bumped around and didn't know. And then really it was, through college, the only consistent thing I had was football. And I think I realized I don't want to get away from it. I really like being a part of the game. I want to keep coaching. I want to do something. I want to be around it, and got into it right away and, caught the bug, as everybody says to you about it, and rolled with it. So it was good. It was a good start for me. And it was something I kind of just, realized that's where my passion was and wanted to stick with it and stay there.
Talk about, just the day in and day out of obviously, Coach Brezowitz, Coach Leopold. Obviously, right? The history at Whitewater has been well documented for anybody that understands football or Division III for that matter. But just talk about the day to day and just kind of that championship mentality, going year after year there at Whitewater for you.
Yeah, it was funny because I was a transfer in 2007. I came in the transition year between Coach Brez and Coach Leipold, and it was funny because the day I went down there and checked everything out, Coach Brez was sitting in there watching film still, and it was my film from the year before. And he made fun of my number I had at Augustana and told me I needed a man's number and I needed to put a 90s number on. I was 52 out at Augie in South Dakota. And so he gave me crap about it. But it's really the day to day was the family part of it was the coolest thing. Cause Coach Perkins was still alive, obviously, and getting to meet him and see him around, and he was still around. Obviously, Coach Brez was still around, and then Coach Leipold was our coach, and it was just cool. And the family atmosphere, and how long Coach Borland had been there and been a part of that program, and guys like Steve Dinkle, he was the O-line coach, but Dave Hoagland was my D-line coach the first year, and then Kevin Bullis was the second year. You can rip off Wisconsin guy names, and honestly, just the thing that stood out was just how much they made you feel like a family, how much you felt like the tradition that they talk about being there was real. And the, not wanting to let somebody down and want to live up to what had been done before you was real. And it was cool. And it was, a bunch of guys, obviously the guys I played with, and the Ryan Grizoviches you brought up, Brent Allen. Those guys, Justin Beaver, if I don't say that, I'm probably committing some sort of crime.
Justin Beaver, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the AJ Rabels and Tristan Borziks and, just all those guys, and playing with them and coming in. And I was, like I said, I was a transfer, and the way they welcomed me in and brought me into the group and got me rolling right away with everybody, it was awesome. And it was a lot of fun, and the culture and the tradition just stands out to you without a doubt at all. It was cool. You knew it from day one.
Yeah, the last episode we had Jared Dotson on, and Jared's the associate head coach and offensive coordinator at Stetson down in Florida. And he ended up spending a year as an analyst at Buffalo with Coach Leipold. And so we talked about that, and I said, obviously, being a Wisconsin guy, it's just awesome to see the success. So that obviously how it translated, not from just obviously Whitewater to Buffalo, but obviously Buffalo to Kansas as well too. So, jumping into your coaching career, Minnesota Morris, Division III, out there in the UMAC, how was that kind of connection developed to get you your start into coaching?
So that was Coach Bullis. That was his alma mater. And the head coach at the time out there was a guy who stood up. He was the best man in Coach Bullis's wedding. Todd Hickman was the head coach I worked for out there. And it was funny because I was thinking about it and looking to get into it. And Coach Bullis told me, he's like, well, let's send you somewhere where you're going to find out if you really like this and you want to stick it out or not. And Morris was, the guys I worked with, Raven Battle was the first defensive coordinator I worked with. Grant Harding was our DB coach, all guys that had been around and coached in the area for a while. And, it was just guys I learned from, and it was different. I went from obviously a top two team in the country every year when I was at Whitewater, and what they had become accustomed to, I think we had 45 guys on the team at Minnesota Morris. So Wyack to UMAC was a big change. I obviously ended up sticking around the UMAC and being in a few different schools in the UMAC over the years, but it was good. I mean, the small college thing like drew me in, and I enjoyed it, and was fun. And obviously, like being a guy who was an intern with his own room day one, coaching D-line, it was probably not the greatest idea by them to give me the room, but I got it, and I tried to figure it out right away. But I'm sure I did a bunch of dumb stuff, but I mean that's part of it, and I was pretty fortunate. But yeah, Coach Bullis got me set up there, and I was forever grateful because that's what got me the bug to keep doing it.
Honestly, at a lot of these podcasts, just getting to know people, we probably could spend the whole podcast just talking about your first year. But, is there one or two things that you're talking about having your own room that you remember where, you look back years later and you're like, man, what was I doing? Or was there anything that you just, even when you got there and you're like, oh man, like I thought this would translate me being a really good player to just educating these guys. Was there anything that sticks out in your mind?
There was guys that were older than me. The first year coach, every college guy kind of experiences that. At some point, you coach somebody when you're young that's older than you. So I probably tried to be too much of a high and mighty right away, and I told you so versus stepping back. And that's one of the downfalls of having your own room. And one story that stands out pretty hard was we thought we had morning practices, and we thought somebody went out and had fun the night before, and it turns out he was sick. And I was probably a little too hard on him, harder than I should have been on him, but we thought he was out enjoying some of the establishments in downtown Minnesota Morris, and it turns out he was actually just pretty sick. But so felt pretty bad about that one. But it's just, when you're a young coach, you think you know more than you do, and you think you have more power and more say than you actually have. So I was guilty as heck of it, but. Again, great experience.
In some ways, probably a really good experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, great for you to have that experience to where they like really kind of gave you the keys and trusted you, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like I said, kudos to them for giving me the opportunity. And Coach Hick is, he's passed on now, but I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity he gave me to, get in and just take off sprinting. Really sprinting downhill with the opportunity I was given. And it was fun. I'll tell you that. It was different. Lived in a studio apartment above a coffee shop right next to the train tracks, and the trains came through full bore in the middle of the night out in the prairie in Minnesota. It's a different way to live. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. My first year in coaching was at Superior, and it was close by the train tracks. And then, the ships coming in with a little boop, boop, the things you could hear in the distance coming out of Lake Superior. Obviously you're familiar with being at Scholastica, but after Morris, you get to down to Kenosha at Carthage. So obviously you're talking about being in the UMAC. Now you're in the CCW, you're a GA, kind of talk about just like, again, getting back into, not a shot at the UMAC, because again, the UMAC has come a long way over the years, but, just going CCW after 1 year.
Yeah. And it was another, my wife's from Kenosha area originally. So we had just gotten married, and I get plugged in, and Tim Rucks basically pulled a position out of thin air and created it, and let me basically show up every day and get my grad school paid for the first year, and coach linebackers and be around there and cut my teeth as a GA and go to school and get all that stuff done. And being in Kenosha was way different than Morris, Minnesota. Obviously the access to Chicago. And when I got to Carthage, that was actually that winter after the first season was the first time I went out recruiting too. So it was crazy. It was a whole different world. It was a whole different atmosphere. And first time out recruiting, I'm recruiting the south side of Chicago. So it was, I went out there, and that was back in the day when we'd all be there, and you'd show up and there'd be 12 guys sitting in a row waiting to go in to talk to a group of kids. And I had no idea, no idea what I was doing, but Tim, again, God bless his soul, let me just go out and get after it and figure it out on the fly. So that's kind of been the MO of everything I've done, is they threw me into it, and I said, sure, let's go, and asked questions as I made a bunch of mistakes, I'm sure. But
no, and I think that's the best way, right? In the moment you're kind of like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if what I'm doing is right. But honestly, it's in a lot of ways usually the best way to learn. Being on the road, and obviously I know Carthage recruits, obviously Chicago very heavily being right there. Were you able to, kind of connect any of your roots with any of the Whitewater guys you had played with in terms of where they were from, and just knowing maybe some of the established programs that way? Or was it truly just an eye-opening experience where, like you said, it was the first time you were actually on the road?
I was Southern Cook County. So that was I was basically in the city, So like the amount of
Yeah.
guys, we were more like north side of Chicago, like guys we got in the northern suburb guys that I played with a lot, like Lavelle Coppage from OPRF, and like that was like more of the guys we had. John Baldwin was from the northern suburbs and stuff, guys I played with at Whitewater like that. But I was more down in the city, so it was talking eye opening, like a kid from Hortonville.
Kind of a new territory for you then, right?
Oh yeah, kid from Hortonville who was at Minnesota Morris the year before, and now I'm in downtown. I'm down just off of Michigan Avenue and ripping schools down there and trying to figure life out. Going to Thornton and the TF South. It was learning and on the fly and getting to know people, but it was good. Like it's guys I met recruiting then are guys I still stay in contact with today.
Yeah. Your move to Dubuque, was that partially for an opportunity at a full-time role there?
That was my first full-time job. Yep. Went over there
Okay.
and was just there for the year, and then got hired back full-time at Carthage again, obviously with my wife's family being in Kenosha, the chance to go back and be full-time CCIO. But yeah, Dubuque was, I really liked Dubuque too. Paul Merkowitz was the head coach, but Steve Helminiak, who just finished up there this past year, he was our O-line coach and our assistant head coach. So I worked with Steve, and then Rob Goody was he's at Upper Iowa now as the defensive coordinator. I work with him, and then there's a couple other guys that are still on staff there that are just good dudes that have had the opportunity to work with there. It was good. I mean, it was different, but obviously like the family drawback to Kenosha, we couldn't pass that up when we were young and had a family. And we actually had our first was born when we were there. And then we found out the second one was coming. So it was like, well, time to, if we can get back closer to family for now, we're going to do that as best we can.
Yeah, no doubt. After that, you were at Lyon down in Arkansas. You're at Marietta in Ohio. And again, I was kind of talking to you off air, just kind of doing a little research on you. It seems like, you've been a lot of places where maybe rosters were smaller. I mean, you talk about Morris, right? When you're like, hey, I got there and there's like 45 guys in the roster. Now, obviously, as you progress through your career, there's, quite a pattern there with you being at places and then helping kind of programs grow. I guess, what did you learn? Again, obviously, we're going to talk more about your experiences and things like that, but just from growing rosters and building programs, what did you kind of learn through your time with just being at different stops and helping those programs, obviously, not only growing rosters, but also have success in the field, too?
I attribute a lot of what I learned was when I was with Mike Yeager, when Mike Yeager was our DC at Carthage for the year before I went to Loras, and then came back with Coach Yeager when he got hired. He taught me how to be a professional quite a bit, how to recruit, how to be consistent, how to, really, I mean, the biggest thing, we're in the car coming back. We had our senior retreat that we went on, which was a whole new avenue. I'm sure we'll talk about too, that I'm in high school now, but went to our senior retreat and we're coming back and we were talking about, attention to detail and keeping things simple. I'm like, well, the best thing I ever heard from a coach was this is what Coach Yeager told me, he's like, hey, you either coach it or you allow it. And like, 'cause I think I was young and was trying to make an excuse for something that happened, and I think he corrected me on it, and he put me in my place a few times. Probably I deserved it more than once. Deserved it, but I mean, I attribute a lot of what I learned from him, a lot from Kirk Kelly. He's back at Oklahoma Baptist as a baseball coach and the athletic director now, but he's who hired me at Lyon as a 27-year-old defensive coordinator, which God bless his soul for pulling that trigger on it too. But I mean, he gave me the freedom to, go in and run a defense and be in charge of a room when I probably wasn't ready for it. But, I was ambitious and I was enthusiastic, and he put me out there to do it. And then, working for a guy like Andy Waddle, who's at Valpo now. Coach Waddle took me in at Marietta, and, we worked. He was a defensive guy and had a ton of success when he was at Witt as a defensive coordinator. Obviously, we got that Marietta program spinning before I headed out of there. But I mean, it was the freedom he gave me in recruiting and developing, working with me and allowing me to be the recruiting coordinator, and how we took ideas I learned from Coach Yeager and implemented them at Marietta and did that, and, kind of put our own spin on it. So it's just, I've been lucky. I've had a lot of guys that have taught me, but have also given me the freedom to go out and try things and make mistakes. And I think with recruiting, it was just, hey, go out and work real hard and, be the most consistent voice. And at the end of the day, we're going to get more kids than we lost. And luckily I was in the right situations at the right time more often than not. So it was fun.
When you were at Marietta, how big was the influence of like John Carroll, Mountain Union in the state? I mean, again, you're growing that program, and you guys had, I think, one of the best seasons within like 20 years when you were there. So you guys obviously did a great job, but like, how big was that influence of like again, not only the scholarship type schools, but the John Carrolls, the Mount Unions, anybody else that was around, that Baldwin Wallace, any of those other schools?
When I got there, man, I think there was 73 kids in that 2016 season that we rolled with. And I think the biggest thing that stuck to me was one day Andy comes in and we were talking and he just finally says, like, hey, we're not going to beat Mount Union or compete with Mount Union and Baldwin Wallace and John Carroll by trying to be them. We have to try to be our own team. We have to be our own identity. And when we started recruiting like that and putting a huge focus on, developing the whole player and finding the right type of player. So we had a rubric that we developed that had, where are they from? What's their distance from campus? What is their major? What's their grade? It was a whole thing where a scoring system that's basically helped us identify the kids that were the best matches that we started using.
Yeah, I love that.
And when we just, I think it was really when we just said, hey, we're not Baldwin Wallace, we're not John Carroll, we're going to go be Marietta. And when we really dug into that, people noticed it. And, having a guy Alan Estep was great offensive coach. He ended up being up at Notre Dame College for some time there, and he was our offensive coordinator, and we had All-American running back after All-American running back when I was at Marietta. That helped. But, we had a bunch of guys who were super competitive. We were younger still, all still pretty young. Super competitive in recruiting. Nobody wanted to get beat by anybody. Everybody wanted to bring the most visits and get the most commits. And I think it's just we competed with the state because we chose to just be Marietta and go out and just be our own group and be our own unique approach. And that was the best thing for us. And I think I carried that a lot. I attribute learning as a young guy to Coach Yeager a lot. And as I got older and developed more, Andy Weil still talk to him as much as I can. Obviously he's pretty busy now at Valpo and we're in different parts of the country, but I attribute so much to the freedom and the ability to work with somebody that was like that. And, allowed you to just be you and go out and work hard and was happy for you. Guy bent over backwards. If anybody listens to this and has the chance to work for him, work for him. He has your back. He tries to look out for you, tries to get you. If he could get you raises, he got you raises. If he got us a recruiting bonus for the summer one year. It was crazy. Working for him was absolutely phenomenal. And I attribute a lot of what I was able to do there was because of how much he allowed you to just go be you and work.
That's awesome. I love to hear the recruiting bonus too, especially, again, when the football side and you're, bringing a team of, you guys basically transformed it from 70 some guys to 120. That's unreal. You talked about, going back to Duluth going to Duluth, the UMAC. You had a lot of different categories that you were in the top 10 in the country statistically. Being a defensive coordinator, what was most exciting about going to Duluth and getting back in the UMAC up at Scholastica?
Yeah, it was. I wanted to get there. I wanted to get closer to home again. Just had been in Arkansas and then in Marietta, and Duluth got me about 4 hours away from home and about 5 or 6 hours away from where my wife's family was at the time. So it got me back there, and it was the program was in a state where I think at the beginning of fall camp I had 17 healthy defensive players on the roster, and it was just it happens. And I think we were 4th in the country in takeaways or something like that. We had the number 2 tackler in the country, and it was just I was given a lot of freedom to run the defense how we needed to with what we had, and our offensive coordinator was Bobby Acosta. That was fun. It was, I knew he was either going to score in 30 seconds or they were going to be out the field in 30 seconds. So, my whole job was how do we get when we sat down and game plan with the staff I had, I was like, hey, we got to get them the ball back as quick as we can. So we emphasized takeaways, obviously having a smaller roster like we did. It just really was, hey, we can't practice physically hard all the time. We can't beat up on them. We got to be smart. So a lot of it was takeaway focused. A lot of it was, finding ways to do unique pursuit drills on how we close the distance on somebody and how do we get as much out of that 17 kids as we could without killing them. And it was just, there's a lot of freedom given there and a lot of opportunity, and had a bunch of kids that, they had been through their third head coach and their time, and they bought in right away when I walked in the door, and they could have just said, screw this dude. I'm not listening to another DC that I've been here, but they listened, they bought in, and like Eric Soderberg was our guy who finished second in the nation in tackles, and man, he bought in, played his butt off, and we did a lot of fun stuff. I mean, getting that many takeaways is never a bad thing. I think we were first in the nation in fumbles that year or something like that. So it was fun. Like, we were just aggressive as hell and got after it. And it was, again, a lot of freedom and allowed to just do crazy stuff that put us in hopefully good spots.
You know, you bring up a great point. So if you only have so many healthy bodies, again, I played high school football for 4 years, but it's been a while, and obviously I never coached it. If you're running short on bodies, I mean, is it just you're just thudding up? I mean, what's kind of the protocol there where it's like, well, we can't afford literally any more guys to get hurt? I mean, what's kind of the emphasis with that?
Everybody's got a million different names for them, but we had like those pro pads where they weren't full on shoulder pads, but they were the foam that looked like a full shoulder pad. We practiced in those most days, and everything was tail. We did a ton of walkthrough, And when I say walkthrough, it was more like jog through it. So the fits and everything from that standpoint with us were usually on point pretty good, because you can do a jog through of a play 3 times faster than you can with full speed because of all the other aspects that come in when you're flying through it. So I think
Getting
our
up
rep
and
count,
all that stuff. Yep.
well, and our rep count was massively high because we weren't hitting anybody, weren't really taking anything to the ground, no big contacts or collisions were happening. So you could go 3 times as opposed to 1 time because you were afraid of getting somebody dinged up. So I attribute a lot of it to, hey, well, like, I figured out how to, be creative and get as many reps as we could. I found new creative ways to use the scout team. We used different options on how we did it and got kids lined up. But I think that's really at Scholastica. I learned how to amplify your time without beating the crap out of people. And then obviously with COVID too, we learned how to be creative in a whole lot more ways when that happened.
Yeah. So you get your first head of coaching opportunity, Finlandia up in Hancock, Michigan. I believe it was early 2021. So obviously March. Familiarity with the UMAC and March of 2021. Yep. And familiarity with the UMAC and obviously getting up there. And, I had played Finlandia many times as a player in basketball, but also, coached against them too. And, the investment that they had put into the football field and obviously the weight room up there was second to none, from what we had seen when we were up there and things like that. But obviously numbers had been low and whatnot. So just talk about like walking into that and just kind of like the challenge, that you were kind of on taking, going to Finlandia.
Yeah. So it was a weird time. Like, everything kind of happened later, and I got hired in March. I showed up, I think March 15th might have been my first day. And the whole time I was interviewing, I was under the assumption that the 30 kids that were on the website were the 30 kids that I was going to have, going forward. And I sat down at the desk and March 15th, and I realized that there was 8 kids on the roster on March 15th. And March 15th, 2021, the world was still, for the most part, shut down. Like, the Florida recruiting circuit was digital. The Houston, the Houston, Texas, like, prospect showcase that they usually did was the digital. So it was it was over. So it's a weird time to be there, and only having 8 kids was even weirder. And our budget wasn't big. I knew that going in, but I also was under the understanding that, things were on the up and up and we had things figured out. Then come to find out there's 8 kids, and I had to try to get a roster together that we could play a game with in a matter of basically 2.5, 3 months. But yeah, we went in.
So how'd you do it? I mean, that's literally like almost like, hey, white flag, like we can't play this year, right? Like, I mean, how'd you do it?
There was, and I tell everybody this, there was 15 minutes where I sat at that desk right away the first day, and I felt bad for myself. I was like, looked at everything, and I was in a old classroom was my office, and it was this little desk stuck in the corner of this massive room. And I'm like, took a deep breath, and I'm like, all right, stop feeling bad for yourself. There's no more, what did I do? What the hell's going on? Like, we got to go. And basically we redid the virtual visit. And in some aspects, COVID helped us, but we redid the whole virtual visit, turned it into more of like a tour vibe. And then all the coaches on staff that we had were involved in it. And we just went absolute pedal to the metal. We had to have done 200 virtual visits with kids. And wow. Obviously D3 recruiting, like your funnel has to start massive. And then, cause like a funnel, it's going to get narrow. So we just started going nuts. And getting kids and talking to kids. And I was on virtual visits. Like my wife's a saint. She's in Duluth trying to get the house ready to sell. And I'm living in a dorm room in Hancock at Finlandia doing virtual visits till middle of the night because we were doing them all across the country. And, I'd go fall asleep at about 1:00 in the morning. And then our next one would start at 9 a.m. the next day, 8 a.m. the next day. And we ended up with just over 60 kids on the first day of fall camp total. I talked a handful of kids that were on campus into coming back. So that helped us. I think that got us up to about 15, but we brought in right around 50 that first year of kids. And really, there was only about
that's insane.
8. There was only about 8 that had told us they were coming, that were incoming freshmen when I walked in. So we ended up with about 23 with kids we talked in and kids that had committed prior, and we went nuts. And a lot of it was, Joby Sullivan ended up being my offensive coordinator there, and he's the offensive coordinator at Kentucky Christian now, but he was like the hardest working dude I ever had around me. And if I said, Joby, we got to do this, and we inherited a locker room that had nothing organized. There was no shelving to be spoke of. The game pants were getting stored in lockers. Like it was I had no idea how chaotic it was until I was sitting in it. And we redid the locker room. We built shelves. We created all the inventory. Like we basically started it from scratch there. And, tried to up the experience and break kids in. And we did a good job. I mean, we brought kids in. It was trying to get your foothold in something there that was rough. I came in the same year that Anthony Franz did at Crown. That was his first year. Crown just won the league last year. And I've joked with him a few times. I was like, yeah, if we wouldn't have shut down, we could have kept going, man. This Crown Finlandia thing could have been pretty good but it was good. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of stress, and it was a lot of just new problems that I hadn't encountered, because I was pretty fortunate. Like Morris wasn't burning up the budget books by any means, but we weren't struggling. Like we weren't trying to figure out unique ways. And, Scholastica, we had a good budget, and Marietta, it wasn't, again, we weren't burning anything up, but we weren't it was a lot of new, for a first head coaching gig, it was a lot of things I never thought I was going to have to deal with that I ended up having to deal with.
At the end of year 2, were you kind of getting a feeling that was kind of the end of the institution in terms of, just dollar signs and enrollment overall and everything like that?
The summer before season 2, I kind of felt it. Like there was some nerve-wracking things, like they raised tuition after the fact in the middle of the summer on kids that were deposited and ready to come. We had some unnerving meetings with the new president that had brought in after I got there and I wasn't even a month in, and the whole faculty voted no confidence on the president that we had unanimously. So I walked into basically the war zone.
Right.
It was we were storming the beaches of Hancock trying to figure out what was going on. But I mean, it was, again, there was one thing I kind of thought it was and was feeling it was, and then it got there and a lot of stuff changed in a hurry. Our AD was awesome through it all. He's one of the assistant ADs at Michigan Tech now. Curtis Wittenberg, he was awesome. Like he had my back 100% and he helped me. But I mean, I kind of felt it coming the summer before, and then the budget things, like we didn't have a trainer at the start of fall camp. So we go to play Iowa Wesleyan, and we had to hire a trainer to meet us there, and none of the kids wanted their ankles taped by some guy they didn't know. So I was taping ankles before I had to go out and talk to the refs, and the refs came to find me because I wasn't out there to talk to them pregame. And they said, hey, looked at me and said, hey, where's the head coach? And I said, give me 1 second. And then I walked out there to meet them, and they said, well, you got to go get the head coach. I'm like, that's me, dude. Like, yeah, I was taping ankles, but that's me. So
other duties as assigned.
Oh, I know. And my dad was one of the get back coaches. Joby's dad was helping fill water bottles. Like it was a small, tight knit, crazy, hardworking group. And honestly, looking back on it, as stressful as it was, I learned a whole lot. And when or if I'm a head coach again someday, I will have a new respect for facilities and opportunities and budgets, and I will have a whole new respect for everything that's out there for sure.
Yeah, so you stayed in the UP then, making the move from Hancock to Marquette. where you were defense coordinator at Northern Michigan, obviously getting to the Division II level and obviously you had to make a move family wise, but at least you were still, somewhat in the locale of where you were at. How fortunate were you to kind of find that and kind of align with everything, considering, obviously Finlandia closed its doors?
Yeah. Coach Rich had just been hired, and Joby, who I was talking about, he was a Northern alum. So it kind of got me connected to talk to him. Coach Rich had heard from a few people like, hey, you should give me a call, because I was up in recruiting and I was developing, I developed some good relationships with the UP coaches up there and gotten to know. Obviously, I mean, that was trying to be my main source for Finlandia, was wanting to get local kids. And so developed some relationships and obviously applied and went over and interviewed with coach and got that opportunity. Before the school shut down, I actually was able to resign and take the job at Northern right before it happened. But again, I kind of knew it was coming, and it was at the moment, it was a great chance to get over there and, try something different, and coaching Division II and coaching the GLIAC, and obviously a whole different animal there. And, it was definitely a unique experience. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what'd you all learn about, being in that D2 league?
I mean, Ferris is everything. Ferris State's everything that they say they are. It's Coach Anise has got an absolute machine rolling down there. And then Grand Valley is one of the coolest places I'd gotten to coach in. At this Lovers that stadium is unreal. It's cool. It's definitely a unique. We played at night in the rain and it was cold, and not as many people probably should have showed up as did still. So it was very unique, very cool place to play. Didn't like being in the dome as much as I thought I would have. It was just, I don't like coaching inside. Like, it just wasn't for me, but it's a very cool facility, very unique place. Definitely learned a lot about coaching and the environment of coaching at the Division II level, and, got out and got to recruit completely different. I went from driving my own car and only paying for gas and paying for my own food to, I drove down to Milwaukee basically and lived in Milwaukee 1 week at a time in a school car with a school card at a nice hotel. And it was nice to have that D2 budget a little bit, I'll tell you that. But no, football was still football, and we obviously inherited a very tough. I mean, that's kind of been my MO over the years, was let's inherit something that's crazy and see what can happen from it. And this one was definitely one of the crazier ones that we had, for sure.
Yeah. So Coach Richardson resigned, I believe, end of the 2025 season. Obviously you being a part of the staff there, I mean, you've been in coaching at that point, 15 some years, and obviously the Finlandia situation, like you said, obviously you kind of saw the light coming there, but, did you see it with Coach Richardson and kind of him stepping down and that kind of ending in Northern?
There was a situation that, he got suspended with 2 games to go, and then he resigned. So we actually finished out the last 2 games with an interim head coach, and we won the last 2 games with an interim head coach. So that usually doesn't happen. Opportunities like that are usually few and far between. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously we kind of, when the suspension happened, it kind of took everybody by surprise and, put us in a situation where we were on our heels. And I'll tell you, like, Billy Lindquist, who ended up being our interim head coach, like, we just kept rolling, and we won a 4 overtime barn burner against Davenport, and then came back and blew Wayne State out at home and gave up the least yards that we've given up in 15 years. And Northern had given up in 15 years to that point. So I was sitting there kind of at the end of the year, and nobody knew kind of what was going to happen. I think I was more of the, like, yeah, guys, we're done. Like, there's no way in hell we're coming.
The realist in the room, yeah.
Yeah. I think there was some hope, and there was some. I think everybody kind of was half hopeful, half like real. I was like, yeah, we're done. Like, there's no coming back. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of things, and it's like, I'll just say Northern's was a very interesting place and a very unique environment compared to the other places I had been.
So what do you enjoy most now that you're in the high school scene? Obviously, we were talking beforehand, getting to some warmer weather down in Alabama at Enterprise High School, and what kind of excites you most about kind of this new chapter of, getting out of the college scene and going to high school for you?
A big part of it is my son. He ended up getting to play some varsity at Marquette last year as a freshman, started in their playoff game at right guard and played. Pisses me off, I'll tell you that. I was a defensive guy, been a defensive guy my whole life. My kid loves playing O-line. So makes me mad a little bit, but I love it because he's one of the few kids that embrace it and love doing it. So getting him down here to play high school football, and then obviously, I have a front row seat to the rest of his high school career. And as a college coach, I probably wouldn't have had that much of an opportunity to do stuff like that and to, be around that. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. Obviously the move changed from 300 inches of snow to 90 degrees and sunny, and I'm good. Like I told you before it started, like I don't need the cold anymore. I can do without it. And obviously, like, Enterprise is such a unique situation. We're right by Fort Rucker, so a lot of
Okay.
military families, it's not just Alabama. You get people from all over the country in and out. So it's a very unique, small southern town. I mean, we're really 30 minutes from the Florida border. We're in the Panhandle in 30
Okay. Wow.
minutes if we start driving. So we're that far south.
Nice.
And we have
That's a great location, man.
Oh, it's awesome. And we have the number one rated stadium in the state of Alabama. Like it's better than most of the places I coached at through my college coaching career. We just finished this winter. We moved into our brand new weight room. We have it's a $16 million facility as a whole. And we have indoor practice facility. We have new training room. Yeah, it's a pretty, look it up. It's I couldn't believe it. It was funny because a guy that I coached at Carthage, he runs a lot of the strength stuff for the district down here, and his name is Brad Fortney. He thinks he's really funny to tell everybody that I coached him down here, not realizing that I'm only 3 years older than him, and I was a GA when he was
right. He's making you seem like this old grandpa.
Oh, yeah. He talks about me like I'm 55, 60, 70 years old. So, and he thinks it's hilarious, but it's like, well, no, dude, you're actually in the same high school class as my wife, but you want to sit here and be a smartass the whole time. But no, it's good. Like, he called me, and I think it's funny, like, the name of the podcast and everything. I was sitting on my couch, and I had a few other opportunities, a few other offers. I had another college. I had a Division III coordinator job offer out there and stuff like that. And I was sitting on my couch, and my phone rings, a FaceTime. And it was Brad standing on our track with the phone, and over his shoulder, you could see our indoor facility. And I'm like, what? What are you doing, man? And he goes, what do you think about moving down to Enterprise, Alabama? And I thought he was full of it. Yeah, I thought he was full of it. And then not an hour goes by, and I'm on a Zoom call with the head coach and the guy who's our defense coordinator right now. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of real. And then I went down and visited, and my wife always told me I saw everything with rose-colored glasses when I'd go look for jobs. And I told her, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down here and try to find every negative freaking thing I can about this place.
But there's nothing.
And it's not. The school district is awesome. Our admin that we have here is super supportive. And for a first high school gig for me, I'm pretty spoiled. Like, this is not, the first month I was here, I just kept looking at everybody going, this isn't real life. Like, this isn't really what I'm doing now. But it's great. Like, it's dealing with high school kids. It's different, obviously, from what I was accustomed to, but it's Alabama. I want to say 7A, but they restructured everything. Now 6A is the biggest class, so it's 6A high school football in Alabama, and it's unreal. Like, last week we were at a 7-on-7 tournament at Hoover High School, and you remember this? You're my age. The 2-a-days show on MTV,
the TV show. Yep.
I'm standing there looking at it. Like, our safeties coach, his dad is good friends with Rush Probst, so I'm like this is pretty cool. Like, I'm in this environment that I only dreamt about, and I've said probably 1,000 times, I look at my son, I'm like, hey, 15-year-old me is so jealous right now that you're in this environment playing in this high school. So, I mean, it's just, I'm super happy. And obviously, like, the change, we work and we're in, and we have a lot of contact time with the kids, which is great, but it's still like, I'll have a lot more time with my family. And I've been married next week, Thursday, 16 years to my wife, and she's been here. Obviously, I've coached 17 years, been married 16, and she's been through all of it, and she's been the rock through it and seen me through all of it. So there's just the opportunity to see my son through the program and come down to a school district that's as strong academically as Enterprise. And, my 2 daughters, I'll have a daughter in 8th grade and a daughter in 4th grade too. And man, like, what a cool opportunity for them to say, Dad moved us all over the freaking country, and then we ended up just north of Florida in 90 degrees and sunny, and just, in a better spot for everybody. And I think that was the draw, was the family part of it the most, for sure. But mean, as a football coach, selfishly, yeah, I mean, $16 million facility, indoor practice field. And like, it's pretty crazy to think this is a high school when you go to show up to work every day.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And obviously wish you the best of luck. I'll follow from afar. And yeah, I think your time between Duluth, Hancock, and Marquette, you're well-deserved a few school years in some nice warm weather. So it seems like a great opportunity for you. And yeah, just like I said, excited to kind of see what you guys can do down there from afar.
Yeah, no, I thank you. I appreciate it. We're super excited to, and almost 10 years up by Lake Superior. You're right. It's well due time that I get my wife the hell away from the cold and get her in some warm for sure.
I'm assuming you sold your snow shovels?
They're gone. We sold that snowblower the second we knew there wasn't a big threat of snow anymore in Marquette. My wife goes, "Should I sell it?" I'm like, "Get rid of it." And then the day we sold it, I walked into the office and told all the other coaches, I'm like, "Hey, snowblower's gone. There's no turning back now." So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Mike, it's great to meet you. And like I said, obviously, best of luck this year and coming years at Enterprise.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.